Marinelli, and today I'm speaking to Noam Wasserman. He's a professor at the Harvard School of Business and author of The Founder's Dilemma. Thanks for being here today, Noam.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Allison.
So the main idea of The Founder's Dilemma was to give people a roadmap of what's ahead of them so they can be prepared to make the right choices. Would you say that your mission is to help people map out these critical decisions?
No, exactly. This is where, in an arena, when we're heading into being entrepreneurs, that at the beginning of the journey, because we don't have a roadmap of the most important decisions that we are about to make that then have long-term implications, that we tend to rely on gut, we tend to rely on anecdote, we rely on intuition and rules of thumb that we heard. And to the extent that sometimes those are good to follow, but at other times those are counterproductive, they can mislead us, they can be short-term decisions that are disastrous in the long term. What the goal is within my research and now within the book is to give people who are heading out on this journey an idea of what are those key decisions to think harder about, to make sure before you go and leap, before you follow that gut, to make sure that you're checking it with understanding that road ahead. And in particular, there's one set of decisions that research has shown are the most critical ones in terms of make or break for the venture, and that happens to be the people decisions. That nearly two-thirds of the reasons for failure within high potential startups is because of ill-fated people issues, the tensions between the founders or the tensions between them and the hires that are brought on to complement them. And to the extent that we can have people make a better set of people decisions early on and then be able to set themselves up for that road ahead with regards to all these people they're involving in the ventures, that's what that goal is.
Now, you mentioned relationship decisions as being a pitfall in the 3 R's. Can you explain what the other 2 R's are in your theories?
Sure. The 3 R's are a way to highlight for founders what are some of those most critical early decisions that very commonly are headed towards trouble. The most common of those decisions that they make are the ones that are the most fraught with peril if they are not managed in the right way. And those 3 are the relationships, the roles and decision-making, and the rewards. And the relationships are the sources of co-founders that you look to. Are you co-founding with friends and family, people that you have prior social relationships with? Or are you co-founding with people that you have a professional basis for how you're going to be working together? Or are you co-founding with people that you really have no real relationship with yet, and then you're going to be building one from scratch? And that's a great example of the most common of those decisions that often is troubling down the road. Co-founding with friends and family, the social sources of co-founders, those can be the most glorious of teams, but they also can be the most disastrous of teams. And when people go and dive in and make that very common decision, more than half of the startups within my data set co-found with friends and family, and yet they are the ones who are increasing the chances that they're going to end up in disaster. So that's the first of those R's. The second, the roles and decision-making, very common that those teams go and live in what I call Neverland. Neverland, where Peter Pan lived, was full of just kids. They're all peers. There are no parents there, no hierarchy. And within startups, we have a great euphemism for that. Within teams, we call each other co-CEOs. We make decisions by consensus. And over time, as we grow, as we get to 20 people, 25, 30 people, that's where we need to have a hierarchy, to have a place where the buck stops, to have a clear set of decision-making. And to go from Neverland to that hierarchy is often a jarring transition that if the founders haven't erected things to begin with that long-term view of where things are going to have to go, then it's going to be a very jarring transition for the venture. And then the final of those 3 R's, again, very common decisions around the rewards, in particular the equity split within the team. And how often teams split in different ways. The most common of those are the ones that are fraught with peril. And if you want, we can go deeply into that, but that's a quick overview of the key 3 R's that we have to be considering early on as we are setting things up and heading into the journey together.
So just going back to co-founding with friends and family, would you recommend that this is something you can do? It just has to be done the proper way?
No, absolutely. What I would love to have is that we can achieve much more of that, achieving a team of glory that friends and family can become, but with people taking those actionable steps to protect themselves from the disaster. When we are co-founding with friends and family, we also tend with those types of people to hold off discussing any of the conflict-ridden types of issues. And when we have that combination, we don't bring up those issues until they're blowing up in our face. And we also are facing the prospect of risking and damaging the most cherished of our relationships, that combination is that playing with fire. It is that most dangerous of combinations, and we don't tackle the elephants in the room, and yet they can crush us. And to the extent that we can have those early conversations, we can have teams understand how to approach them, the need to approach them, and then harness that to be able to erect those firewalls and create early agreements that are going to be explicit about those types of things, a prenup, if you will, to protect ourselves from the damage, and also make sure we're not punting and holding off on the conversations that are going to be blowing us up. That is the key thing for those types of teams to be doing.
So not to sweep it under the rug, but approach the issue head on as soon as it arises.
Or even before then, when things are still calm.
A lot of people, including Steve Jobs, have said that having a passion for what you do will help you make it to success. But you also say that your passion for your project can also be a pitfall or get in your way. So can you kind of explain how a passion for your project can be a positive and a negative thing?
Sure, no, absolutely. My favorite Steve Jobs quote is follow your heart, but check it with your head. And the heart part of it is definitely the passion part. When it strikes, that is where you have to check it with your head. That's where you have to make sure that you're rationally going and evaluating each of the three domains, and making sure that when passion leaps, I'm not going to be following it, and I'm not ready to leap. I have the market not ready for me. I am going to be devastating my own personal life in the career side. And so that passion, as long as it is working hand in hand with the intellect, that is where the magic that Steve was talking about can come from. But all along that journey, that's where that passion is oftentimes the secret sauce, is oftentimes the magic that is what is getting you to leap, and being able to attract all the key people with your passion to come on board with the venture. But along the way, your passion might mean that you are misreading whether the market is ready for this. You're going to be having projections that are going to be too rosy. You're going to be underestimating how much of the outside financing you're going to have to attract. You're going to be overestimating your skills and what your holes are that you should be going and filling in with other people. And so all along the road, making sure that that head is complementing that passion so that you can harness the passion in productive ways. That is the critical thing as you're both deciding when to leap, but then at each of these key steps along the journey.
Well, thank you so much for speaking with us today, Noam. I've certainly learned a lot.
Okay, thank you, Allison. Appreciate it.
For more information on Noam Wasserman's theories or on the Founder's Dilemma, go to Kidela.com.